You know, for over 2,000 years, the Parthenon in Athens has been held up as the gold standard of architectural perfection. We see it everywhere, right? In textbooks, in photos, and we think of it as this flawless, rational, perfectly straight building.
But what if I told you that whole impression is basically a giant, magnificent illusion? What if the secret to the Parthenon's perfection is that almost nothing about it is straight at all?
Okay, let's get into this because it's fascinating. To really understand this building, you first have to understand the problem the ancient Greeks were trying to solve. And it wasn't a problem with their marble or their tools. Nope. The problem was with us, with the weird quirks of the human eye.
So our brains play these little tricks on us. Take a look. On the left, you have geometric reality, a long, perfectly straight horizontal line. But on the right, that's what we actually see. To the human eye, that same line looks like it's sagging or dipping in the middle. It just looks weak.
And it's not just horizontal lines. The same thing happens vertically. On the left, two tall, perfectly parallel columns. But from a distance, our eyes perceive them as being a little thinner in the middle, almost concave. They can look less substantial, maybe even a bit fragile, even when they're holding up tons and tons of stone.
So the Greek architects had a choice. They could build a temple that was mathematically perfect, but looked kind of wrong and flawed to everybody, or they could do something absolutely brilliant. And well, they chose to master the art of correction.
Instead of fighting against human perception, they decided to work with it. They came up with a whole series of deliberate, super subtle adjustments designed specifically to cancel out these optical illusions. And these are known as optical refinements.
Now, the most famous of these techniques is called antasis. It's awesome. To stop a column from looking like it curves inward, they actually built it with a slight curve outward. It's this gentle, almost invisible bulge in the middle of the column that tricks our eyes into seeing it as perfectly straight and strong. It's basically reverse psychology for your vision. And all of this brings us right back to our star attraction. The Parthenon isn't just some building that uses these tricks. It is the absolute most sophisticated example of optical refinements ever created. The entire building is designed to look perfect to you.
They didn't just use one trick either. They used a whole system. First, the entire base of the temple, the platform it sits on, actually curves upwards toward the center to fight that sagging look. Second, every single one of those massive columns has that subtle outward bulge, that entasis we just talked about. And third, and this is wild, the columns don't stand perfectly straight. They all tilt slightly inward. So much so that if you could extend their lines up into the sky, they'd all meet about a mile up.
So what's the grand effect of all these imperfections? Well, without them, the Parthenon would actually look heavy, droopy, and just kind of sad. But with them, the whole building comes alive. It looks dynamic, perfectly straight, and almost weightless. It's a paradox, right? The curves are what make it look straight. The tilt is what makes it feel solid as a rock.
So what's the big takeaway here? This is so much more than an architecture lesson. It's a really deep philosophy about design that's just as important today as it was way back in 438 BC.
It all boils down to this one incredible idea. The goal wasn't to build something that was perfect on a blueprint. The goal was to build something that felt perfect to the actual human being standing there looking at it. I mean, this is the ultimate example of human-centered design, thousands of years ahead of its time.
The genius of the Parthenon, then, isn't just in the math or the amazing stonework. The real genius lies in how deeply its creators understood and even celebrated human perception. It's a structure designed not in spite of our flaws, but for them. And that leaves us with one last thought to chew on. If architects were bending reality to make our experience better thousands of years ago, where else do we see this today? Think about it. From the subtle curves on your phone screen to the way fonts are designed on a web page, the principles of the Parthenon are all around us, quietly working behind the scenes to make our world look and feel just a little more perfect.